अच्छयोरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञाय गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वञ्जिगातु भेषजम् शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्तिः 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 सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम् पुरुष एवेदगं सर्वम् यद्भूतं यच्च भूयम् उतामृतत्वस्येषानः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतो ज्यायागिश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वाभूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतं दिवि त्रिपादूर्ध्व उदैत्पुरुषः पादोऽस्येह भवात् पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत् शासनानशने अभि तस्माद्विराडजायत विराजो अधिपूरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चाद्भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यम् ग्रीष्म इद्मः शरद्धविः सप्तास्यासन् परिधजः त्रिः सप्त समिधः कृताः देवागद्यज्ञन्तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषं पशुम् तं यज्ञं बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषं जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्त साध्या ऋषयश्च जे तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः सम्भृतं वृषदाज्यम् वशोगस्तागश्चक्रे वायं याने आरण्यान् ग्राम्याश्च जे तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः ऋचः सामानि जज्ञिरे छन्दागुंसि जज्ञिरे तस्मात् यजुस्तस्मादजायत तस्मादश्वा अजायन्त ये केचोभजादतः गावोह जज्ञिरे तस्मात् तस्माज्जाता अजावजः यत्पुरुषं व्यदधुः कतिधा व्यकल्पयन् मुखं किमस्य कौ बाहू कावूरूपादावुच्येते ब्राह्मणोऽस्य मुखमासीत् बाहूराजन्यः कृतः ऊरो तदस्य जद्वैश्यः पद्भ्यागं शूद्रो अजायत चन्द्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षोः सूर्यो अजागत मुखादिन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च प्राणात् वायुरजायत नाभ्या आसीदन्तरिक्षम् शीर्ष्णोद्यौ समवर्तत पद्भ्याम्भोभिर्दिशः श्रोत्रात् तथा लोकागम् अकल्पयन् वेदाहमेतं पुरुषं महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसस्तु पारे सर्वाणि रूपाणि विचित्य धीरः नामानि कृत्वाभिवदन् यदास्ते धाता पुरस्ताद्यमुदा जहार चक्रः प्रविद्वान् प्रदिशश्च तस्रः तमेवं विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था अयनाय विद्यते यज्ञेन यज्ञमजन्त देवाः तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् ते हनाकं महिमानः सचन्ते यत्र पूर्वे साध्याः सन्ति देवाः अभ्यः सम्भूतः पृथिव्यैरसाच्च विश्वकर्मणः समवर्तताधि तस्य त्वष्टा विदधद्रूपमेति तत्पुरुषस्य विश्वमाजानमग्रे वेदाहमेतं पुरुषं महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसः परस्तात् तमेवं विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था विद्यते जनाय प्रजापतिश्चरति गर्भे अन्तः अजायमानो बहुधा विजायते तस्य धीराः परिजानन्ति योनिम् मरीचीनां पदमिच्छन्ति वेधसः यो देवेभ्य आतपति यो देवानां पुरोहितः पूर्वो यो देवेभ्यो जातः नमो रुचाय ब्राह्मये रुचं ब्राह्मन् जनयन्तः देवा अग्रे तदब्रुवन् यस्त्वैवं ब्राह्मणो विद्यात् तस्य देवा असन्वशे ह्रीश्च ते लक्ष्मीश्च पत्न्यौ अहोरात्रे पार्श्वे नक्षत्राणि रूपम् अश्विनं व्यात्तम् इष्टं मनिषाण अमुं मनिषाण सर्वं मनिषाण ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
Right this moment, there is a mad rush in America. Apple, Amazon.
Namaste. Let's start with a prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we're continuing in with the 9th verses. Tam yagyam barhishi praukshanna purusham jatamagratah tena deva ayajanta sadhya rishayaschaye. So this is the instructions, these are the explanations of how a person can reach Paramatma. So in that sense, we should see Purusha Suktam means Purusha Stuti. So it's a praise of Parameshwara, Paramatma, Ishvara, Brahman, all the same names. And the praise is in the form of understanding the sophistication and complexity of this creative model called the world. And so the best form of the stuti is to really know the intricacies of the whole universe. We've said this before, that really you can, supposing some very big scientist happens to come to your home and you you praise the person and say, my gosh, you are such a great person, you are a Nobel Prize winner, and I really admire you. So the person will be pleased that that you are welcoming the person. But if you were to sit down and say, my goodness, do you know I went through your book the other day and I had no idea what an insight you have about the truth of the whole physics, let's say. So this person who did it might say, well, what did you understand? Tell me about it. And so if that person is able to explain the intricacies of all the discoveries and inventions about the person, then the person who is being praised will, as we say in Hindi, shabash. Beta, you have also reached a certain, I'm very impressed by you that you were able to go through this and understand the sophistication of this model. So very similarly to this is the Purusha Suktam, that the best form of praising Ishvara is not just to pray and say, you are almighty and you are all knowing and you all forgive, please forgive my sins. And so if you do that, that's kind of good. It's excellent. But if you were to say, my goodness, I cannot believe what a structure you have created. This is exactly what we're doing. We are not in fact, it's interesting, the Dakshinamurti Stotram is in the form of Swami Maheshananji said, both is stuti as well as a jnanam. And the jnanam is the best form of a stuti. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And so really we are trying to understand and appreciate and enjoy this whole universe and how it was created. So in this context, this is perhaps the most important thing that anyone can do in one's life. You can read up on on solar technology. You can read up on politics. You can talk about COVID and how the vaccines are made and all those kinds of things. And those are all great. If you understand them, it's wonderful. But if you can understand and unravel the mystery surrounding the fact, how can a person, while living as a human being, achieve a total independence? Is there anything close to it? It isn't. There isn't. And so much so that you really need to take the help of Ishvara to achieve this. We cannot do this by ourselves. And Ishvara does it. Ishvara arranges the right setup for you. All that. It's all done behind the scenes. You may not realize it. But it's a great discovery. So in that discovery, what we are seeing is that normally we adopt the sacrifice given in the Vedic rituals, and that's even written that you could even sacrifice an animal, and you cut the head and the body of the animal and sacrifice it to. It's nowadays not done, but the Vedas sanctions it if you want to. Now, even more important than that is, Purusha Suktam says it is better if you cut yourself into two parts. Don't. This is a much more sophisticated sacrifice. It is not just a physical sacrifice. It is in fact a sacrifice of untruth into the truth. And what is that sacrifice? We have already gone through this. What you have to do is to separate the two constituents that are now mixed up together and are creating a lot of problems for you. So In the Mundaka Upanishad it says, Bhidyate Hridaya Granthihi Chidyante Sarva Samshayaha Kshiyante Asya Karmani Tasmin Drishte Paravare. This is the mantra that comes in Mundaka Upanishad. So here the key thing is Bhidyate Hridaya Granthihi. So this is the important aspect of it. He says that this knot of the heart, Hridaya Granthihi means a knot, K-N-O-T, knot of the heart is Chidyante. It is unraveled. So what does that mean? Is we need to, I think we've already studied it, but I'll bring it into this context one more time. And so, Swami Maheshananji has pointed out that a knot of two portions of a string, rassi in Hindi, of these two big ropes or strings, the job of connecting the two parts, two different strings into one, is such that they cannot individually do this. In fact, it's just so funny. I just happened to do this today. So my wife had brought some a plant, a basil plant, and we found out that I actually put some basil plant outside in the garden, and it was good for a while, but it withered. And my wife was watching a television program, and it said that the basil hates winter time, and I didn't know that. So she brought another basil plant, and this time I've just put that inside the house. Now the leaves are tilting in one direction, and so I wanted to put it together so that they are standing up. So I had these two ties, and they could not circumscribe the whole plant. So what I did was I made a knot out of them, and now I made a circumscription, and then I put a knot, and now the plant looks good. I just did this about a couple of hours ago. So the two strings, so if you look at what I did was I had two ties. Each tie was not long enough to circumscribe the whole. It's about so many different stems of the branches of this basil plant, and it was so big that a single tie could not do it. So I had to combine two ties, and now it came around it, and it was nicely tying it up. So similarly, Swami Maheshananji says that the two strings individually are incapable of doing something. What are the two strings? One is the conscious you, and so this is called Chetana, and the other one is an inert set of body-mind complex. Inert. It's as inert as a table. So if you were leaving some papers on a table, and you came back later on and you say the papers are no longer there, you cannot say that the papers got from place A to place B by themselves. A conscious person must have moved it from one to the other. So the body-mind complex by itself is not Chetana, it is Jada. And so it cannot do anything. When you say I am the doer, I am a karta, I am a bhokta, I am the recipient of the result, and I did this. So this feeling that I did it and I am reaping the rewards of my action, this the body-mind cannot do by itself. And the Atma, which is complete Sakshi Chetana, cannot do anything by itself because it doesn't have the wherewithals to do anything. It's like space. Space cannot do anything. It is just silent, watching. So those are the two strings. You have the Chaitana string and you have the Jada string. Individually, none of them can really accomplish what you and I are doing it effortlessly. Effortlessly. I am the Karta, I am moving my head this way, and now I am putting my hands on the table, and then I remove the hands, now I'm looking at the right side. All those kinds of things. The body-mind cannot do it. The Chaitana doesn't do it. It cannot do it. But combined together, something happens. That one which is kind of like a blind person and a lame person. One who has no legs. The lame person cannot walk by themselves. The blind person also cannot see that. But together, the two of them, if you do that, then they can do something. So this is what is called Hridaya Granthi. These are the knots of the heart. And so there is an adhyasa, there is an error. So the Chetana Vastu gets adhyasa on the Jada Vastu, and the Jada Vastu makes an adhyasa on the Chetana Vastu. So this is what is called a double knot. I don't know if you ever if you have, Boy Scout or Girl Scout. I remember that when I was growing up, so we used to be having some training on Boy Scouts. And so one of the training we were given is to put these two knots together. And so there's a knot called reef knot, which I can still do. And the reef knot is a single knot can come untied, but a double knot is so strong. You can pull it apart. In fact, the more you pull it, the more intricate it becomes. And so this is the double knot, where the Atma is imposed on the Jada, and the Jada is superimposed upon the Atma. Anyonya Ashrayaha. This is what is said in the Vedantic technical terminology. Anyonya Ashrayaha. One depends. It's kind of like a Mexican standoff in the Western world. One depends on number B, and number B also depends on number one. And where one starts and where the other one stops, no one can tell. Until you start inquiring. And if you do, then the knot slowly becomes untied. And when that happens, so this is the reason I'm explaining all this, that in this Purusha Yajna, where the Ahankara is sacrificed into the fire of Brahman, Barhishi, Praukshana. When it is sacrificed into the fire, means that the Jiva, the human being, which is a composite of these two strings, has to be cut into two. And you don't cut it physically, but physically you untie the knots. And what it means is viveka. You have to see that the electricity and the appliance, the electricity cannot turn the fan blades by itself. It doesn't have any blades. It doesn't do anything. And the blades by themselves cannot power itself. So a combination of the electricity and the appliance makes it. move. And so this sacrifice of the being, of the jiva, is that the jivatvam, the ahankara, the status that I am a complete being, I am so much old and I was born in India, all those kinds of things. You have to start casting doubts on the veracity of this. So just like an iron ball, which has no heat of its own, does not throw light of its own, borrows it from the fire, but now becomes a very important thing. It's a red hot iron ball, and it has a certain ahankara. Look, and also unlike the fire, I have a nice shape. I have a round shape, and I can do what the fire can do. I can throw some light around, maybe not quite as big as the fire, but I can also illuminate a dark room. And of course I have heat, so I'm as good as the fire. And then the fire when it says, oh yeah, okay, let me see how long you're going to be. Because this ahankara that I am a red hot iron ball cannot last, because it's not the swarupa of itself. This fact, in fact, will come later on. In fact, I'm going to talk about this, how the deva becomes a sadhya, and then from a sadhya it becomes rishihi. So, dena deva ayajanta sadhya rishayaschaye. And so it is to give up. And so, just as a reminder before we start the new class, so far it was just a revision from last week. As you know, as a reminder, a manushya, a manava, a person, a jiva becomes a deva when it is ready to sacrifice the ahankara. And ready to sacrifice the ahankara means it is ready to understand that this is foolishness, stupidity on my part. It is like wallowing in the dream. In the dream you are a false character, there's no reality whatsoever. And yet you have some sleepwalking fun. And if in the dream you become very proud of yourself, I've accomplished so much, I've done this, that, or the other. Poof! In an instant the dream wakes up. When the alarm rings, you're gone. The whole thing disappears from it. This is exactly what we need to do about ourselves as an ahankara. But I take myself very seriously. Oh, I'm a educated person. Don't mess with me. I know a lot. And I have some money. And I have some power. And I'm for real. So what about the fact that you are growing very old? Well, those days will come, but right now don't mess with me. I'm enjoying my life. Okay, don't take that away from me. And this is the ahankara that keeps it alive. And so to become a deva means that you see right through it. And somebody has to tell you that. You cannot figure it out on your own. And somebody cannot criticize you either. Someone approaches you with some love, really, and say, you hesitate. I just want to let you know that this is not right. So he said, what do you mean what is not right? You know the status of this human being. He said, what do you mean everybody else is doing it? Are you jealous of me or what? I'm not jealous of you. I'm just telling you there is some confusion in this conclusion. What confusion? What confusion? I am a human being and I've led a good life, and what confusion are you talking about? Okay, fine, all right. You go away. And then you can call the person, but okay, now you are an interesting person. What confusion? So he says, are you willing to listen to me? He says, okay, I'll listen to you for a while. Then you fold your hands like this. Okay, I'll listen. And then the person can say, listen, there's some funny stuff going on in here. Your status as this jiva, you're very vulnerable. You're not secure. Yes, I am not secure, I know that. So, and then you unravel the whole thing. And so if as a result of all this, if the person says, oh my God, you are right. You are right. There is something I have to look into. Can you tell me more about it? And that's the teaching starts. And this is what it is. Tena deva ayajanta sadhya rishayaschaye. Deva means that please, you need to sacrifice yourself. Don't sacrifice some animals and this. Those are gauna yajna. The pradhana yajna is you yourself has to sacrifice. Then you say, oh, see, interesting. Tell me more about this. So then the whole progression starts. Okay. So now we can see that the process of going from a deva. So the deva is your resolution that I am ready to do it. Not easy, and there's a long ways to go, but at least I've started on that path. This is the deva. Then to become a sadhya, I would say there are, in summarizing, I think Swami Maheshananji has spent a lot of time with examples, this and that. I don't think we will do all of that. But I've summarized his discourse into three aspects of becoming a sadhya. And so we saw that, I think last class or the one before that the sadhya gana, the grouping of the devatas called the sadhya devatas, are ones by following whom I reach Paramatma. This is not true of all devatas, by the way. All this is not true for all devatas, because there are devatas that will take you to heaven, Swargaloka. So you can go to Manushya Gandharvana, Deva Gandharva. All this is done in Taittiriya Upanishad. There are different grades of heavens. You know, it's interesting if supposing there is a person who follows Christianity that says that, you know, we believe in heaven. And what about you Hindus? Do you have a heaven? So we can answer, we not only have one heaven, we have lots of different stages of the heaven. We have heaven number 1, heaven number 2. Which one should I talk about? So, and then the best thing is that if you describe the heavens and how beautiful they are and all of that, in the end he says, Shrotriyasya cha kamahatasya, in the Taittiriya Upanishad. He says that heaven number 1, what enjoyment you get in heaven number 1, you can get it right now as a Shrotriya and akamahata, that when you give up a certain desire for it, you become free. You become free. It's like, you know, you go to someone and say, listen, haven't you Have you seen this movie, this new Netflix movie? I hear this all the time. You go to some social get together and some person will say, "Oh my God, did you see that movie?" So you go, which movie? "Oh, it's this great, you have to see this. This is the best movie that has come along for a long time. And it's on Netflix. You have Netflix, don't you?" And then you sheepishly say, "No." But you sometimes lie just to please the other person. He says, "Yes, I have Netflix, but I'm very busy," or something. So, no, you have to see this. And so the person can say, "I was so anxiously waiting for this movie to come. And then I saw it. And what an enjoyment it was." So this is exactly like saying this is heaven number one. So heaven number means that heavens can be reached through yajnas. You do a lot of different yajnas. And then if you do it accurately enough, then after this life, not in this life, but after this life, you will reach heaven number one. It is like I was waiting for this movie, and I got it. Now you must see this. So then tell me, who is a better person? A person who was anxiously waiting for this movie, who was looking for calendars, when is it going to be released, when is it going to be released, when is it going to be released? And then it is released, then you go and buy a ticket, then you see it and you enjoy it. As opposed to that, the other person says, "You know what? I'm enjoying life as it is. I don't need to see a movie." No, but you will. No. So this is exactly Shotriya Sacha Kamahatasya. I don't need to go to heaven. I'm okay the way I am. I'm enjoying life. I'm happy. I haven't done anything. I don't need to do anything. I'm happy by myself. So, all devas cannot help you to reach Parameshwara. Some devas will get you into heaven number 1, heaven number 2, heaven number 3, up to 7 heavens. So these are the various devas. But the Sadhya Devata are those. So Sadhya Devatas means you don't even have to know what their names are. But you do what they like you to do. See, the reason for following a Devata is that you want to become like that, as I was talking about a couple of weeks ago. And so, Sadhya Devatas are those that take you to Ishvara. That means that you become one with Ishvara. Really, that is exactly what we are all trying to do. Without understanding it, we don't understand what we really want. We want Parameshwara. We want to understand, we want what they say, realize God. These are all words, realize God. What it means is this. I want the same qualities that Parameshwara enjoys today, where he is, I'm told, not bothered by anything. He has to support all of the world. It's kind of like, you have to support the family, but all the problems of the family become yours. This is all discussed by Swami Maheshananji in great depth. I am just giving you a summary of it. And so the problem in owning things and in being responsible for some collection of people and so on is that you also own up their dukkha, their problems. Before that, you didn't have a family, you didn't have any grandchildren and so on. And then you have grandchildren. And one day your son or your daughter calls up and says, I have to go to office. Can you please babysit my children? And by the way, they're very sick. Now before that you had no problems. Now you are now you have to take care of the grandchildren, and their sickness becomes your problem. So similarly, if Ishvara is the grandfather of the whole universe, is he not going to also inherit the dukkha of the whole world because he's responsible for it? No, it doesn't. This is because to him this creation is not a real creation. Just like if you have some kind of a sad scene going on in a play, you enjoy it. You enjoy it. You may actually have some tears coming down in your, just because you're empathetic and so on, but at the same time you're eating popcorn. You're enjoying it. So, no, Ishvara is not affected by it. And I want to be like that. I want to be like that where nothing bothers me. And this is exactly what all of us are trying to do. We may not realize what we are doing, but we are doing it. This is what we are not doing it, but this is what we are all engaged in our life. Is a quest for freedom. And there is no one with as much freedom as Parameshwara. And so really speaking, I want to be not like Parameshwara, I want to be Parameshwara. Because there's infinity, but the very substance of the very nature of Ishvara is infinity. So they cannot be like Ishvara. You cannot have two infinities. Because you belie the very definition of what an infinity is. Infinity is not large. It means limitless. And you can only be happy if you are limitless. So by Bhuma, I think in one of the Upanishads. So the word Bhuma is used. When you have no limitation, any sense of limitation is cause for dukkha. Any sense. So the only person who can be totally happy is the one who has no limitations whatsoever. And that's Ishvara. And I want to be like that. You cannot be like that. You have to be Ishvara. What it means is, you are Ishvara, but you don't understand it. You are Ishvara, this is all, you can be easily saying, what is he saying, I am Ishvara and so on. What does it, what it means is that it's only Ishvara is, you are not there. See, this is what I'm saying. So just like a dream character is not there, only the waker is. But you are usurping the title of the waker by saying, I forget about the waker or anything. This is me, false me. So the Sadhya Devatas are the ones who give you this ekata, aikyam, non-duality with Ishvara. This is the specialty of the sadhya. Okay? This being the case, there are three things mentioned. There are many other things that can be done, but there are three things mentioned where the direction for us to become a sadhya devata are given. So it's kind of like three points on the road that will tell you you're going in the right direction. Okay? So you want to follow the sadhya's so that you also become a sadhya. You become one with Ishvara. This is what we need to do. Now the question is, how? What do I need to do? Okay, glad you asked. So I'll just summarize the three things as the distilling of the various discourses that Swami Maheshananji had, for 100 to 150 pages really. And we don't have the time for all the details, but I'll give you the gist of three things. The first one we already did last week, and that is the samarthya, staying within your samarthya. So, those three things that I'm going to now talk about have one fundamental basic assumption, which is so crucial that they really should be kept in mind as I lead my life all the time. This is what characterizes a Vedantin from a non-Vedantin. What is that? Praptasya prapti. An accomplished of the already accomplished. I cannot emphasize this enough. So what this means is, praptasya prapti means, you should keep in your mind the fact that the way we are leading our lives is not to accomplish something new, but to understand that I already have that. This is the crux of the whole thing. It kind of makes sense to me, but I don't quite understand the implications of this. This is our issue. But we need to thoroughly understand what this is. And so, praptasya prapti means that really, and in fact what it means is that, as I mentioned before, you are not there. It is only Ishvara that is talking and doing. Whatever is being done is done by Ishvara, not you. Not as it's your status is a false status. So what it means is that the Ishvaratvam, the quality of being limitless, infinity, as I talked about earlier, is already done. It is done. You are you're already at the point where you are the very source of the Ananda. This should be kept in mind, because in all of my transactions and all of my actions and all of my goals and accomplishments and so on, it belies the fact, because I pretend to do as though I have to do a lot of things. I don't have it. But if I keep in mind that in and through all these 3 or 4 points that we talk about, and I will try to complete all 3 of them, it's about 20 minutes left. So take samarthya. This is a good example. Samarthya. So just to reiterate what we went through last week. So the samarthya means the ability, you have certain abilities which are God-given to you. And of course you have to explore it and develop it. But in doing so, don't overstretch yourself. Don't overstretch. Stay within the envelope of your capabilities. You can stretch if you want to. Remember the example that we gave, so Maheshanji gave this. He says that in our days of trading, 100 years ago, a trader would accumulate a lot of capital but only stay within the capital and not borrow anything outside of that. These days, borrowing is a fundamental part of doing business. So it is called leveraging. And what leveraging does is that it raises your expectations, that I want to be bigger than what I am now. And it also accompanies by a lot of worry, concern. And Swami Dayananji used to say this, he's a beautiful, he says, we are experts we are so much in love with getting good interest on my capital. We all discussed how much did you earn this year from your money? And somebody would say, I made about 5%. Really? That's all? No, you should talk to me. And so you say, really? You do more than? Oh yeah. So how do you do that? Well, I leverage my stocks by borrowing a lot of money. And you may actually make a lot of money, but you don't sleep at night. Swami Dayananji used to say that we are very fond of comparing how much interest we get. We sometimes forget that the only thing we might get is just the interest and the capital is lost. So the fallacy of asamarthyam. Asamarthyam means when I go beyond my capability is that I may lose the capital itself. What is the capital? I just want to sleep well and be secure during the day and enjoy life. But no, that's just for losers. That's just for losers. You have to invest and you have to take risks and you have to borrow money. It's so cheap these days. Why not borrow? So people will argue. Well, because those who have done so, there may be people who have accomplished it, okay, but generally it is accompanied by dukkha. No, but then you'll stay poor. Don't you want to be rich? I want to be rich, but not at the cost of my own happiness. So now in this samarthya, if you remember this basic assumption that runs through all the points, what are the basic assumptions? Praptasya prapti. That your inner happiness is already there. But you refuse to tap it. This is the issue. You think you are you have to do things and you have to accomplish it by doing things, and you're not going to be happy. You are happy if you give yourself a chance. If you discover it. And stop knocking around, looking outside and so on. Just look at yourself. Parameshwara is within you. Is you, not only within you, is you. No, but I don't feel it. Initially you may not feel it. But this is the truth. You are consciously denying the truth about your own samarthyam. You have it, stay within it, enjoy it. So this is the first part of the three parts of of becoming a sadhya devata. The second one is conflicts within yourself. Virodha, what is called virodha, means conflicts. So you have the happiness, but you lose it by not resolving the conflicts within yourself. And it's an extension of samarthya. So, for example, there are three things that all of us have. So we have Jnana Shakti, the power to know. Then we have Kriya Shakti, which is the power to do. And we have the Ichha Shakti, which is the power to desire. These are the three basic powers that are sleepy, that you have a desire to do things. So these are the three things. Now, when all three of these parts are in non-conflict with each other, your happiness is there. So, for example, you take your desire is to speak the truth. Okay, that's you. Are you a if somebody asks you, are you a truthful person? Can anybody ever say I am a non-truthful person? No. Everybody will say, yeah, I'm a very truthful person. In fact, this subject is going to come up a little bit later on when we transition from sadhya to rishaya. So I probably will not come today, but the adherence to satyam is a very important one. But I'm just giving you a quick summary of that. So you say that I want to speak the truth, but I desire to do it, but I'm unable to do it. At the slightest point, something comes up and I lie through my teeth. Conflicts. And so similarly, so for example, Swami Maheshananji gives the examples in India where there are separate room air conditioners, not a single for the whole house. So he says the desire is for getting air conditioners in all the rooms, but you don't have the knowledge or the capacity or the ability to do it. Conflict. You came up with certain desire. Some friend of yours has it in all the 4 rooms, and you have it only in the bedroom at night in India, but you wanted to have the other one. Now you have a mental conflict. My gosh, I cannot do it. I want to be like the other person. Conflict. Then conflicts at home. You are, especially in marriage situations, that you don't like all the things that your spouse does, and the spouse doesn't like all the things that you do, and there are conflicts in there. No peace in the home. Conflicts in the body. In fact, this is exactly fundamental to all the serious diseases like cancer, where one part of the body attacks the other part of the body. And whether you created it or it happens, conflicts. Ultimately, there is a conflict between you and Ishvara. There is a certain dharma that you should be following, but you don't follow it. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Conflicts. And so here really it is not maximizing any one of these factors, but the ability for them to be in harmony with each other is the second point of the becoming is sadhya devata. So the first one is samarthyam, the second one is absence of virodha, conflict. The third one is based on vichara, thinking, wisdom. And what kind of wisdom? Distinguishing between intrinsic and incidental. The distinction between incidental and intrinsic is important. And how? So you take, for example, our emotional life. So there we have anger, and we have a so anger is a negative emotion, and being excited, so this is what is called harsha. So harsha is excitement and joy, and you want to be like that. You want to be really, this is what you find, people want to be singing and dancing and so on and so forth. So this is the positive emotion which is on the other direction from krodha. And of course we have the pure moha, where we don't know what we're doing, we're not sure of things and so on and so forth. So all those kinds of emotional reactions are there. Now the question is that intrinsic to you or not? And the question is worth asking because we feel it is intrinsic to me, but I don't know how to navigate between them. And all of them are not obviously mine. So for example, supposing you have anger. So if this person is angry, and you say, why are you angry? I don't understand what's happened. What happened? What made you angry? And it says, anger just came to me. Something happened to me and I didn't expect it and I'm not happy about it, and so I got angry. Okay? Then supposing you are having a lot of fun. You're laughing and you're dancing and so on and so forth. And that is not the same as the anger, but that also is unnatural. Because somebody can say, what was the joke that you're laughing about? So there is a reason for laughter. So what do you mean, what reason for the laughter? Can't I laugh? I said, you can laugh. But supposing, Swami Maheshwarana gives this example, supposing there is a person who's laughing all the time, either with a reason or for not reason. He's just laughing. He'll be sent to a mental hospital. It's not natural. To be quiet and peaceful is natural. But to be dancing around and laughing and so on and so forth is not natural to the Atma. So both sides of the emotions are not natural. So the question is, are they intrinsic to you or are you incidental? And so we have to conclude that the intrinsic one, where you are peaceful, non-conflicting, and you do not have desires that are bothering you, is the natural state. That is who you are. And all these perturbations to it, they may be positive or may be negative, are incidental and not intrinsic. And so the question of, for example, the water. So the flowingness of the water is not the swarupa, it is It is not an intrinsic part of it. Well, that's maybe not a good example because the water always flows in that manner. But one other example I would give. So the heat-giving property of fire is natural to it. And yet it says that if you were to try to cook at 15,000 feet, the fire fails. You do not have enough heat in the fire to cook. This is a well-known phenomenon. So the question is there something wrong with the fire? The fire's ability to heat, does it change? Question is no. The heat is intrinsic to the fire, but it has an incidental property that if you take the fire at a very high temperature, then its ability to heat diminishes temporarily. And if you bring it back to the same place, that is the natural reason for it. So we leave it the third part of the sadhya. The sadhya devata is, so the first is samarthyam, the second one is non-conflict, and the third one is viveka. What is intrinsic and what is incidental? Why are we saying this? Because any temporary state which is not natural will go away. So, for example, both shoka, moha, harsha, krodha, these kinds of emotions, both negative and positive, are visitors. They are not intrinsic to me. And if I think about it, if I do the vichara, then my chances of following the path leading to the sadhya devata is the right one. Staying within myself, avoiding conflicts, and to understand what is my natural state, because that's who I am. And luckily, that natural state is the same natural state for Ishvara. And so if I dwell on those three things, I am well on my way to becoming a sadhya devata. And now next time we will talk about the rishi, sadhya rishayaschaye, the definition of a rishi, and that will complete this this mantra, and then we'll go on to the other one probably next week itself. Okay, so with that I close the class. Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So Balamani is saying that to change from Manava to Deva, Viveka is necessary. Who can provide Viveka? Is it Guru or Ishvara? So Ishvara has to provide it through Shastra and the Guru. So they are not separate. So this is what is called Ishvara Kripa. So there are 4 types of Kripa, Balaji. So one of them is, four Kripas are necessary. One is Ishvara Kripa, one is Shastra Kripa, one is Guru Kripa, and the 4th one is Atma Kripa. These are the 4 ones. And they all have to work for you. So Ishvara is the one who has showered the blessings to you, that you are following a helpful path to understanding your happiness and so on. You're not following a path which is not leading anywhere. This is really going in the right direction. And so all this comes from Ishvara Kripa. Now, Ishvara Kripa does it by giving you an introduction to Shastra. Shastra is the one Shastra means all the spiritual knowledge that we have. Those are the ones that have to convince you about your Viveka. That you need to distinguish between Atma and Anatma and so on. All of that, the basics of this knowledge, Shastra is provided. The Shastra has to work through a Guru, because a Guru has to provide the communication, having understood to a certain extent about what the Shastra is, and then providing you with the ability to listen and to communicate and to discuss. So this is the Guru Kripa. Then finally comes the Atma Kripa. In some ways the Atma Kripa is the most important, because there, no matter what the Ishvara's Anugraha is, Shastra Anugraha means Kripa, whoever is, unless you and your mind are convinced, it will go to waste. So what it really means is that your own preparation will enable you to fully grasp the significance of this. So this is the characteristic of knowledge. Knowledge requires one thing most importantly, which is ability to understand. So this is the what is called adhikaritvam. You have to be an adhikari. You have to really. So this is what is called Atma Kripa. And so the Atma Kripa is not just an accident. You have to develop your mind to a place where you can say, yes, this Viveka makes sense. So this is called the Atma Kripa. So all 4 of them work in conjunction with each other to lift you to a point where you are now transformed in a different direction altogether. So that would be the okay. All right, any other questions? Nice to see you all. It's so wonderful. Excellent. If there's no other questions, then I'll take your leave and we will hopefully see you next week. Om